Welcome to MedTech Speed to Data, a KeyTech podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rogers, VP of Business Development at KeyTech. Each month, me and a KeyTecher are going to interview a MedTech leader and talk to them about the critical data-driven decisions they make in their programs. Hey everybody, welcome back to MedTech Speed to Data. I'm your host, Andy Rogers from KeyTech, here today with Anand Subramony from Eli Lilly. Anand, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. You've always given me the opportunity and your time, going back many years. So happy to have you on the show. So Anand, you're the Vice President of Drug Delivery Device, Connected Solutions and Innovation at Eli Lilly. Can you give our audience a little bit of a background of your work and role in pharma over the years?
Yes, definitely I can. Thanks, Andy, for the question. As a matter of fact, I recently completed 25 years in the industry back in July. So it's a good milestone for me. It's a feel-good factor. My first pharma industry experience started with my role at Johnson & Johnson. This was back in California. It was the ALSA Corporation, which was the drug delivery center of excellence, even before drug delivery became what drug delivery today. I was developing an iontophoretic patch for fentanyl. And this was even before the time combination product guidelines were established. And it was a really interesting experience. You have the passive transdermal patch for fentanyl, but this one is an iontophoretic patch. So it's a device drug combination product where there's a small current pushes the drug onto the body through the stratum corneum interface, and it has an on-off effect. And being in J&J ALSA, I was able to work on a number of, so we launched that product, by the way. I was able to work on a number of other areas, including parental control release, solid oros, depots, and also ocular back of the eye delivery. So it was a tremendous experience as a pharma person to be and learning the ropes through this first company. After that, I joined Dr. Reddy's. A company in India hired me to establish their Center of Excellence in Material Science and Drug Delivery. So I was shuttling between Princeton, New Jersey, and Hyderabad, where we set up that whole initiative. And the best thing was we were able to launch an inhaler, a dry powder inhaler for the generic market. That was my highlight during that company, besides establishing the Center of Excellence. And then I joined Novartis in the Cambridge, Massachusetts area. It was Novartis Institute of Biomedical Research, where I was heading up the novel delivery technologies. This was the time when pharma actually realized that their job is beyond selling a pill or an injection, but bringing in compliance aspect, bringing in other solutions, understanding patient factors. We looked at a number of evaluations while at Novartis, and my team was fundamentally able to transform the way we look at delivery technologies. After that solid experience at Novartis, AstraZeneca and MedImmune hired me. So I joined the group in 2014. And that's right outside of when the combination product guidelines were established by the agency. Andy, I'm sure you'll recall this. In 2013 was agency first came up with a guidance document for combination products. So I set up the device group for MedImmune / AstraZeneca, where we followed all the guidelines of combination product development. And a couple of years later, we were able to launch a prefill syringe for an antibody, benralizumab, and also we launched an auto-injector subsequently with that platform. Very interesting times at AstraZeneca during my experience. I was able to take an oral peptide, a peptide through oral delivery using a combination of permeation enhancers. Oral peptide delivery has been a holy grail for years. We were able to get into human studies with that. We looked at a number of other evaluations while I was there. After building that group, I took a different role in the digital space, looking at digital biomarkers for understanding disease state progression for asthma and COPD. That was part of the work I did. And towards the last later years at AZ, I was providing leadership to a nanomedicine platform, looking at how can we really develop a nanoparticle-based technologies for intracellular delivery, and also try to understand some of the off-target effects of antibody drug conjugates. So really switch to new modalities. So I was fortunate to follow that track, and now here I'm at Lilly, looking at all of this, plus also chronic disease management.
Yeah, great background. So I just want to highlight a couple of those modalities. So patch, ocular, dry powder, prefilled syringe, auto injector, digital. It's a great background for looking at this overall landscape and providing your perspective on this podcast. Just out of curiosity, I've always wondered: you're a PhD, right? So are you a
Right.
scientist by training, or engineering, or just provide a little bit more of that background?
Yeah, and first of all, thanks. I was fortunate to have these opportunities in my life to be able to work on a number of modalities. My background is I got a PhD in science and material science engineering. So chemistry/material science engineering. That's what really helped me to understand the scientific aspects of structure, activity, relationship sort of thing. And also the engineering came from the material science engineering. I did my PhD at Purdue. I did my master's at IIT Bombay. And on-the-job training really became a biomedical engineer.
Gotcha. So you're back in Indiana, or working for a small company based in Indianapolis called Eli Lilly. So what is your current role at Lilly?
So at Lilly, I'm part of the product development organization. It's called PRMD. We are literally agnostic to the TAs. Our job is to really come up with product development across small molecules all the way to genetic medicines and the new modalities. So the main bread and butter aspect of the group is combination product development, which is all the auto injectors, prefilled syringe, anything that is required to be for the successful delivery of peptides for chronic disease management, as well as for antibodies. And we're also looking at a number of delivery technologies for our new modalities, whether it's nucleic acids or cell therapy. So my group is literally end-to-end responsibilities for early development of a lot of these new delivery dosage forms, and also the really be the drug product group all the way to commercialization for devices.
So Anand, can you just describe the main therapeutic areas that Eli Lilly is focused on these days?
Yes, Andy. Lilly is focused on 5 key therapeutic areas, namely diabetes and obesity, and it includes cardiometabolic diseases. Outside of this area, Lilly is focused in neuroscience, as you know, pain, immunology, and oncology.
And then for our audience, a lot of our audience in the pharma space is developing these delivery devices. So can you talk a little bit about the platform types? We mentioned prefilled syringe, auto injector, patch, dry powder inhaler, things like that. What platforms or technologies are sort of under your purview in your role?
So Lilly is one of the very few vertically integrated companies. I've come from other places where we used to do joint development with the device partners. But come to Lilly, you look at it, it's a fully vertically integrated. That essentially means that we make every single component of our devices. And the main platforms, as you have alluded to already, we have a prefilled syringe platform for looking at some of the biologics and also clinical studies. We have an auto-injector platform which delivers 0.5 ml, 1 ml, and 2 ml. And also we have the cartridge-based pen injectors for multi-fix doses. So these are the 3 platforms, and literally all these are internally manufactured and developed and manufactured. And it's a vertically integrated company, not through co-development. And we're also developing other platform-like technologies for the emerging modalities. So for future, we may be able to use certain platform for delivering nucleic acids and other modalities, including ADCs.
Gotcha. All right, that's great perspective. So, for better or worse, the podcast name is MedTech Speed to Data. So the premise is what data is most critical for the people that we're interviewing to collect and how do you collect that data, as fast as possible? A lot of times we're interviewing startup CEOs or CTOs with a novel detection technology, and they've got a runway that's 18 months long to show data, show progress, and they can get their next round of funding and proceed on with their venture. In big pharma, obviously that's a lot different. So what I was thinking about doing in this episode is break it out between like the past and maybe step back a little bit in pharma. In the past, what data was most critical to collect to make strategic decisions? Then we'll talk about how it's kind of currently done at present. And then, where are we going in the future? What data is important? How do we collect it most efficiently? So, and we can focus on, all the way from post-market, billion-dollar drug franchises and that sort of data spin. I think our audience might be interested a little bit more on does this drug work and what delivery platforms might make sense, and that kind of bridge from scientific proof to commercial implementation. So maybe let's talk about the past first. So what was the approach taken maybe at the beginning or your early part of your 25-year career to get data to build confidence that a certain therapy would work? What was the approach taken there, and how was it done?
So I think the whole importance on data, if I remember correctly, started in the 2009 2010 time frame. That's when folks have really decided to use data as a key aspect, as data as a currency. You must have heard that the terminology. I happen to have played a role in the digital health implementation in a couple of my previous roles. So what I've started seeing is we are now, it's especially in the device MedTech space. Data from connected devices has really become a key emerging attribute now. So whether it is how do you make an auto injector record attributes of compliance, how good the patient is using the device, or how they are following up with their regimen, all those have been increasingly started to be used in clinical trials and human factor studies. So what I've seen is a big shift in the initial aspect of bringing these technologies in early human factor studies, use sensors to understand how a patient might use a MedTech solution in their day-to-day life. But over the years, the change has been significant in the clinical realm space, right? So folks have been using data in clinical studies, whether it's use of a biomarker, whether it's connected devices data. As you know, many CROs have clinic digital suites now, where you can literally go in there, collect the data, use them, or you can store them in the cloud space and really use them for future. And if you asked me 10 years ago, a connected auto injector was a concept, but I've seen a lot of these become reality now. A lot of these devices have been made connected in their utility, and I think it has come a long way in testing out many of these in clinical trials. But to answer the other part of the questions, we need to insist on collecting data in the FAIR format, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And if you don't have this framework, you can certainly document things in ELN and other places, but it has to be in the FAIR format so that it can be really dealt with for whether it's machine learning or other aspects. For instance, digital pathology has really made a big impact in the last couple of years. It's all based on how the utility has emerged.
Yeah, it's a good segue to the present. And so let's talk. You mentioned digital pathology. Keytech has a lot of exposure in life science tools, early screening devices, like at the cellular level, spatial biology, things like that. So can you talk a little bit about, and maybe some of the work you're seeing at Lilly, where maybe not so much clinical trials and human factor studies, but even earlier, like in the discovery stage of drug development, what data is most critical, and how are you collecting it?
Yeah, I can speak from a general perspective, not particularly with respect to Lilly, but
Sure.
In general, we are seeing lot of data being collected in one area that pharma will evolve, again, this is my personal opinion, is that understanding the digital state, disease state progression is really important. Right now, we have almost like a binary, right? 0 or 1. We diagnose the patient, give them a drug, and they get better. But if you can really understand the digital state progression using digital biomarkers and collect data throughout, that's going to be phenomenally important in terms of whether it's a cytokine storm a patient is facing because it's a reaction to a certain drug, you can immediately intervene. I think these are areas where there is a lot of potential for, there is some focus going on currently and also for the future.
Yeah, I imagine like disease progression is very relevant in the neuro space and the oncology space, right? Those are two where you want to catch it early and you want to provide treatment to slow the progression of these diseases. I'm sure the other areas it applies as well, but those come to mind to me.
Yeah, other areas respiratory, right? Asthma, asthma is considered as a silent killer. When people get asthma exacerbation, it happens from nowhere. So in one of my past lives, we have done some really good clinical studies to predict asthma exacerbations through some real-time measurement. When I say real time, it's a little bit of exaggeration, but at least several time points during a day, which would really be used for a algorithm development. So asthma is one area that I can see patients can really benefit by, to be able to predict the exacerbation. So in addition to what you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. So, as we get further up the disease progression, right, catching things early, well, let's talk about the future. So to me, that means bigger trials, more uncertainty, more therapies that need to be screened and understood early before you even go into the human. So just talk a little bit about, and maybe what you're hearing at Lilly and from your peers about the future of, what data is most critical to make strategic decisions, in big pharma.
Yeah. So if you look at the AI aspect that we talk and read every day now, right, there are two things. One is predictive AI and generative AI, right? Mm-hmm. And you definitely need a solid data set to be able to use or generate anything based out of these two concepts, right? And these are eventually going to transform our thinking in terms of what we can do with data. Here again, my comment is that early discovery and large set of translational clinical data are very valuable when it comes to model building. So device platforms, for instance, they can benefit from data that comes from common failure modes, patient misuse, reusability of devices, residual drug content, device return trends, just to name a few. So again, here, generative AI will help us to design molecules that could be our new, help with discovery of new targets, reach new targets, what kind of new ligands we can come up with to get to areas like CNS. So I think the future is going to be really interesting if you combine all these technologies.
I wanted to follow up real quick on the predictive AI and generative AI, and forgive me, the audience is half family members, half, customers of KeyTech. So I was hoping you might be able to just explain that in slightly more simple terms. So in the future, how are companies like Eli Lilly going to use artificial intelligence to maybe more efficiently get more data or comb data to make informed decisions? Just maybe answer that one again in slightly more layman's terms for our audience.
I think we are still early days as an industry to be able to use some of those tools like predictive and generative AI. Ideally, we should be able to predict structures that may be more amenable to druggability and things from a predictive AI perspective. But again, that depends on a lot of prior data sets. But when it comes to really using data, early discovery data and large set of translational data are very valuable when it comes to model building. And generative AI will also help us to really design molecules to reach new targets. For instance, if you know some certain ligands really work well for blood-brain barrier transport, can we use similar motifs? Can I come up with a new molecule that will do the same type of transport enablement. And that could be done through generative AI. That'll help with targeted delivery. So I hope I was able to provide some light on it.
I agree. I think we're in early days here, and you mentioned, molecule development and studying, human factors type aspects. So it can be used in a variety of different ways. So it sounds like you're experimenting, and I'm sure a lot of people are. A lot of value to be had there. All right. Well, I'm having a good time here. We've gone through the speed to data section. We're going to jump here into our lightning round. So Anand, feel free to give a very short response or a slightly more involved response. There's no hard rules here. So the topic first topic is, let's talk about the trend from intravenous administration to subcutaneous delivery. High mega trend over the years. What's your view on this trend from where you sit at Lilly?
I think both these routes of administrations are extremely important to patients. For chronic disease management like diabetes, I think sub-Q has been the standard of care for over the years. So it's simple to use in a patient's literally get into, make an injection and get going with their daily life. So sub-Q is really been well adopted, if you will. And in intravenous, on the other hand, for some of the large volume distribution that we need for either CNS or oncology type of therapies, I think IV is a must. So I think both are here to stay.
All right. So next question, talking more about targeted delivery. So, obviously you mentioned, we just talked about IV and sub-Q, but as these therapies get more targeted, what does the future look like for, the simplest example I can think of is, delivering a therapy directly into a tumor, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So beyond the devices and routes of administration we talked about, targeted delivery is really a must because patients and as providers, the off-target toxicity is a big issue. So this is where targeted delivery really comes. There is not so much of a magic bullet that really can go into the tumor, but it's a combination of how antibody drug conjugates have really emerged and turned the corner in the last 5 years with significant amount of approvals. There is a combination of how do you really target certain things to the cell surface and then internalize it, and especially in the case of genetic medicine, whether it is mRNA or whether it is not done using siRNA, you need really that aspect of targeting to the cells, and not only targeting, it needs to do the extra job of protecting the cargo, and then also a key aspect is endosomal escape. So it's really it's going to disrupt the way we are looking at drug delivery from a macroscopic pen auto-injector prefill syringe type of delivery to a microscopic targeted delivery where you need to take the therapeutic moiety into the site of action. So it's going to be a big re-emergence in the coming years.
Yeah, super interesting. So we've talked a little bit about human factors throughout this episode. How do you consider human factors when you look at these novel routes of administration? I liked your comment about if you're off target, it can be toxic to the body, right? So very severe failure mode. So how do you incorporate human factors?
Yeah, so this is an emerging theme across pharma. Human factors traditionally known for the chronic disease management, whether it's sub-Q devices, how you incorporate human factor features into development of an auto-injector. But when it comes to novel therapies, like for instance, if you look at CNS delivery, intrathecal route of administration is one of the key routes where people inject directly into the intrathecal space, into the CSF. Their variability is really an issue. So how do you hold the device? What angle do you need to hold? What frequency, right, what's the speed with which you need to press the syringe? And these are being, even though it's not a patient-driven use, caregivers and doctors need to make this administration possible. So there is a lot of focus on doing human factors for those kind of targeted therapies now. So it's really important, paramount importance to develop new next generation of devices.
Yeah, the irony of it is Yeah, I mean, the therapy might work, but if the human can't administer it appropriately, I mean, you risk, getting a call or recall from FDA. So super important. All right. Next topic. Keytech is very involved in the cell and gene therapy space. That market, that sliver of therapies, is very susceptible to venture capital and private equity funding. Very risky type therapies. But what, in your view, what are the barriers and opportunities for this type of therapy going forward?
So again, for gene therapies, as we just discussed, for the RNA type of molecules, we need to ensure that they get inside the cell and also release the cargo at the appropriate area. So targeted therapy is really important for gene therapy to prevent off-target toxicities and also get whether it is protein expression or it's knocked down, you really need to get the action at the site of the cell. In terms of cell therapy, I think how do you make it more commercially viable, right? Scale up, manufacturability, those are key attributes of cell therapy. Both are highly important now, and I'm glad to see the amount of interest that, as you pointed out, in these two buckets.
Yeah, I mean, I think curing diseases is something I want to be involved with. I think we all do. But yeah, that cost per treatment is super high. I guess just talking a little bit more about that, what do you think it will take to get, cell or gene therapy costs down to where, it's much more broadly accepted therapy?
Yeah, I think we need to make these approaches scalable. We need to really make manufacturing accessible to a lot of people because the modality could be new. The actual sequencing may be different. But if we have a common platform to scale these up, then the cost could be minimized potentially. So scalability, manufacturability are some of the key aspects that comes to mind to make it more affordable.
We're definitely seeing that, and I think it's the chicken and the egg. I mentioned the investment climate right now. If Eli Lilly and other big pharma are looking to acquire these cell or gene therapy companies that look promising, they can't prove scalability because the investment it takes to get a scalable lineup is beyond what the investors are willing to fund. So at some point, that tide needs to go out where the promise of scale and lower cost makes sense from an investor perspective, or maybe other entities need to bring more scalable tools to bear, right?
Yeah, again, this is my personal opinion. What I'm going to say, I always look back at the semiconductor industry, where you have a lot of chip manufacturers, but everyone doesn't own the chip production units. They go to a foundry. And the foundry, you just get in and put your design, make the chips, and get out. So it's more like fill finish location. People go in and do the requirement and then come out. So everybody doesn't need to own this type of scale up manufacturing capability. So if pharma eventually gets to a foundry concept, I think that could reduce the cost.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. All right.
Again, personal opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So continuing on the lightning round, let's talk about those GLP-1 drugs. What's your view on these therapies, and maybe if you're willing to talk a little bit about the impact on our society?
I think based on what we know today, these therapies are really transformative when it comes to impact. We are already seeing how the outcomes are for GLP-1 therapies, and I've been seeing articles that it's really like a panacea even outside of the main. There is main indications just diabetes and obesity. There are a lot of preliminary reports that are available to all of us in new indications. So I think overall it's very good for the society if it continues to bring desired outcomes.
To me, it's the cost. Healthcare is a major cost on our society, right? And the trick is going to be figuring out how to prove that living a healthier lifestyle and less obesity, right, will bring down the cost on our overall healthcare system. More people could be on the GLP-1 therapy. Um, right now it's a more expensive sort of therapy. Some are out of pocket, but if there's a way to prove that by taking the therapy you reduce the overall burden on the healthcare system, that's good. They should bring the costs down because for the therapy, if overall in the long run, the costs are lower. Is that how you view it?
Yeah, we will get there in the next maybe a decade or so. At this point, it's still early days when some of these therapies have really emerged. So we need to wait for a few more years to see how, like you said, overall impact in terms of the healthcare burden.
All right. Next topic. This is a tour de force here. We're hitting everything: cell and gene, human factors, GLP-1. Might as well talk about connected devices. And my question for you is where is the value? You mentioned clinical trials and human factors studies. Connected devices can provide a lot of data early on to help the trial run smoothly and inform design direction from a human factors perspective. Where is the value when you look at like commercialized drug delivery devices? Where is there the most value to be had from a connected device that ties into a digital ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is where I will go back to some of the comments we already talked about, right? It is not fancy anymore just to put a sensor to do something as a bells and whistles, if you will, on a device, because we are kind of past those days.
Right.
The value is going to really come from how we are going to use that data that is coming out of that particular sensor, whether it is compliance data. How is it compliance related to efficacy, right? If you can correlate compliance with efficacy, then let's say if we have more than one molecule from the same therapeutic class, you're able to move patients around. Okay, the patient is compliant, but still they're not getting benefit. Now I'm able to move them to a different therapy. It could be a different molecule. So I think the system, the whole healthcare system can use that data to move people from one therapy to the other if we really use that data in a meaningful way. So I think that's where, and also secondary endpoints we can use from digital, whether it is monitoring their sleep or monitoring their lifestyle. That could really all add up to an overall wellness and feel good factor in addition to the therapy. So I think it depends on how we are going to look at these. Right now, we have efforts going on with some connect. I mean, when I say we as an industry, we have some of these connected device efforts going on. But I don't know if you're holistically looking enough to look at. Okay, I have 5 sensors associated with it. My main observation is going to be compliance versus efficacy. But what else can I use with these 4 other data points? Can I allude to something, a behavioral pattern or a secondary endpoint that I can learn and glean towards a disease state progression? So
yeah, I mean, I'll think about it or comment on this from a slightly different perspective. It could be something like caring for others in your family, right? My wife just signed us up for Life 360 on the iPhone. I don't know if you guys have that or if the audience has that. Now I can see when my wife leaves work, my daughter goes to school, this and that. And I could see, value in knowing, okay, my loved one took their medication or didn't take their medication. I need to reach out or call them. So are conversations like that happening from where you sit when you're talking about what delivery, what the requirements are for a particular drug delivery device?
Yeah, I've heard this kind of conversations during my prior lives, at least 3-5 years ago, where folks have still, there's a business to be made. There's a business model where, someone tracks these and, makes that call because, you and I, our busy schedules may not be always looking at this data and have the time to really follow through. But I've heard about people have come up with, there is a system where, you can remind them with text messages or calls. There could be the business. There is a business to be made from some of these follow-ups, but I don't know how prevalent it is today. Again, it depends on how much we can collect data, who is collecting the data, who is looking at it, what are some of the privacy rules. Because I don't think pharma can really, again, this is my opinion, can really get to know who is actually using your medicine. And it's like, you need to have a centralized system, whether through his insurance providers or other healthcare management tools, where they're able to use this data and provide that reminder service, which you alluded to.
Okay. Continuing on our tour de force here of topics, let's round out our conversation here on sustainability. So admittedly, I'm not that involved with, we have a sustainability team here at KeyTech. I'm sure they're at Lilly and other big pharma companies, but I guess just what are your goals and how does sustainability affect your day-to-day or month-to-month sort of life there at Lilly?
Yeah, this is really very important to my group and within Lilly and what we do. Lilly's goal is to reduce our environmental impact across the life cycle of our products and our supply chains. We achieve this goal by integrating sustainability-focused design principles across the product life cycle, reducing environmental impacts from development to disposal. This circular strategy aims to foster positive outcomes for both patients and the planet. And as a matter of fact, we'll be sharing, a couple of folks from my team are sharing some of these approaches and what we have been doing at the AICHE meeting in San Diego later this month, on October 27th to 31st. So we'll be rolling out some key details about what I just shared with you.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. Very important. I mean, do you know the numbers off the top of your head? Like, I don't know, billions of, plastic syringes manufactured a year on behalf of our industry that are thrown away. Like what are some kind of rules of thumb, for our industry?
Yeah, at this point, I don't recall the numbers, but, we are, as I mentioned, we are definitely looking into like device return policies. How do we collect that? I think I previously mentioned to you, we are looking at lots of pilots right now to reduce this impact, and especially, decoupling the electronics from some of the plastics so that we can reuse them. This is a key attribute and key thinking for future. Yeah.
Well, Anand, congrats. You made it to the end of the lightning round and the episode. So thank you so much for sharing all your insights, over your, 25-year career at various locations. And, best of luck to you at Lilly going forward. I really enjoyed the conversation. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you on the road at some of these events coming up, hopefully this fall, if not, into next year. So thanks again for your time today.
Thanks, Andy. Really appreciate it. It's great seeing you again, and thanks for the opportunity to be here with you. And I also really want to congratulate you on the efforts you're doing in sharing key information with millions of people out there, and also the work you do with your own company.
Are you saying you're a subscriber? You actually have watched or seen some episodes? I'll take that as a compliment. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to MedTech Speed to Data, a KeyTech podcast. Join us each month for more ways to get the right data faster to inform critical decisions. Find additional resources on our website, keytechinc.com. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe, and please leave a review on iTunes whenever you listen. Thanks.